Hello and welcome to the AIM webinar series. AIM is an alliance enabling the cooperation, development, and standardization of AIDC technologies. From barcode, AIM's your advocate. Any organization with an interest in data collection is a beneficiary of these efforts. Membership provides an opportunity to influence the direction of the industry, develop policies and standards, access market reports, and engage new partners. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items I would like to go over. First is our antitrust policy. It's the policy of aiming to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And our collaboration and work product policy states that committee meetings as well as webinars are held for the primary purpose of advancements in our industry, which necessarily involves development of work product intended solely for the public domain. AIM's developed this policy for the protection of its members who engage in this important collaborative effort. You will notice that you are muted. You'll be muted throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, you can send those to me through the Q&A option, which is located at the bottom of your application screen. We will answer questions at the end of the webinar. Also, this webinar will be recorded and you will be emailed when it is available. Today, I'm here with Elizabeth Sinclair, the Director of Marketing for Bartender by Seagull Scientific. Today, she will be discussing the future of labeling, 4 trends to watch. Welcome, Elizabeth, and take it away.
Well, thanks, Mike. And hello, everybody. I'm happy to be with you today. Seagull Scientific develops and markets bartender label software, but that's not really how we think of what we do. Our true focus has always been understanding the problems businesses face today, anticipating their future needs, and then helping them solve those problems with software tools. To help us better understand the problems of today's supply chain and their myriad, we recently conducted research that resulted in a comprehensive guide to supply chain labeling. Today's presentation, The Future of Labeling, 4 Trends to Watch, is based on information in that guide. If you'd like to have your own copy of our comprehensive labeling guide, it's available for download on our website. I believe you'll find a link on the top banner of our homepage. Every one of the top 25 companies that the global research firm Gartner has named to their 2021 list of best supply chains is a bartender customer. And all 25 of the companies named to Gartner's top 21 healthcare supply chains are too. We're proud to be associated with our customers, the people who use Bartender to keep the world marked, moving, and safe. If you're not familiar with our product, Bartender is software for creating labeling, barcodes, and RFID tags. We manage variable data and traceability information in virtually every industry: aerospace, food production, food service, chemical, automotive, medical device, pharmaceutical, even tire manufacturing. Our software is data source agnostic. The data in a label can come from a weighing scale, from a CSV file, or from virtually any database. We're actually so deeply deployed in some big SAP and Oracle systems that our users don't even know that they're using Bartender to drive their label access and security management. It's also output device agnostic, so thermal transfer, inkjet, laser printers for barcodes, RFID encoders for smart labels, even devices like laser etchers for automotive, aerospace, and medical device. So that's who we are. The commercial's over. Let's get to the interesting stuff. Today's business environments are complex, and enterprise organizations are challenged to innovate their supply chain management and processes to meet these complexities. Improving transparency and traceability is at the foundation of a successful, robust global supply chain. But how do organizations manage that in an ever-evolving global market, particularly if they're relying on legacy systems or manual labeling? We all know that auto ID and automation technologies can provide the level of supply chain transparency and traceability that companies need to improve efficiency and reduce costs. But here at Seagull Scientific, we're hearing chatter, distinct trends that are influencing how labeling will be done and what it will do in the future. Businesses and business processes and compliance needs are poised for change. So here are the 4 labeling trends we've identified that we should be keeping an eye on. While you would be surprised at how many companies still use manual processes like spreadsheets for tracking products throughout the supply chain, most enterprise level organizations have implemented automated labeling and tracking processes. It's crucial to maintaining an efficient supply chain, right? So the more human beings are involved in a process, the more opportunity there is to introduce error. Labeling errors can disrupt the entire supply chain, and one error injected at an early node can cascade and multiply as a product travels from manufacturer to use. This creates havoc. Errors can also lead to product recalls and supply chain inefficiencies, meaning extra costs and resources dedicated to correcting and relabeling, with the potential to stall further innovation planned by an organization. Labeling errors can be at the root of environmental health and safety violations, which impacts TRIR. And it's worth noting that more than half of all US FDA food recalls are because of labeling errors. So just how expensive can a recall be? A 2017 McKinsey report found that medical device companies had lost up to 600 million US associated with recalls. These costs not only include those associated with implementing the recall, but also loss of brand equity and reputation. Many companies just disappear after a major recall, unable to sustain their business. We think of barcodes as inexpensive and reliable, but so many things can go wrong, right? Automation applied to labeling provides accuracy, reliability, and security by managing printing directly with output devices, including printers, RFID encoders, direct park marking devices, as we discussed, and integrating with verification hardware. By connecting input from WMS and ERP systems to source data directly, companies can avoid data duplication and enable a single source of data strategy, and also streamline the process of label creation, which also better enables product traceability. Some healthcare organizations are actually working to integrate labeling with e-health records, which provides another layer of patient safety. So companies that operate in the regulated industries, sectors like aerospace, chemicals, pharma, and their trading partners, have to plan around an ever-changing landscape of regulation. In the past decade, entire ERP systems have had to be reconfigured to meet new standards. Quick example. OSHA adopted the UN's globally harmonized system, GHS, for chemical labeling a few years ago. GHS is important for worker safety. It uses labeling to identify products, their inherent hazards, and handling precautions via specific written text phrases, and formatting and pictograms contained in big red diamonds, so they're very visible. And so chemical companies owned and used all that data already, but because GHS made the phrasing for each product and warning specific, and prescribed very strict label formatting, companies had to rearrange master data, rethink how it was retrieved, and how labels were populated. I worked in chemical distribution before I was introduced to the magical world of auto ID. And prior to GHS, chemical companies lived in a monochrome printing world. When I first began my tenure with Siegel Scientific, I leveraged my industry connections and talked with operations and regulatory folks at companies like Dow Chemical, Dow Corning, Huntsman, DuPont, and my former company, Univar. Each said that their greatest challenge in implementing GHS was going to be the pictograms, not especially sourcing the pictograms data into the label, which seemed like it would be the hard part, but the simple act of printing red diamonds GHS required on labels, because most were using black and white thermal transfer printers. That was surprising, and this labeling was important. Even if a company doesn't operate in a regulated industry, there are regulations and standards it has to meet. Maybe your company works within an ISO framework or under CFR rules, or you have trading partners who require standard formatting of labeling. Maybe you're adopting GS1's new digital link standard. Regulations and standards change frequently, and companies have to be agile to meet them. Consequences here include hefty fines, mandated shutdowns, or even permanently going out of business in some cases. And if you operate in multiple countries, you have to manage the immense shifting variability in labeling globally. Agility is the key in meeting regulatory and standard compliance. And automation provides it in a way that manual processes never will be able to. In an automated system, companies can quickly and easily modify labeling. So now let's cover the cool new stuff. Accenture talks about AI this way. Artificial intelligence is a constellation of many different technologies working together to enable machines to sense, comprehend, act, and learn with human-like levels of intelligence. Maybe that's why it seems as though everyone's definition of artificial intelligence is different. AI isn't just one thing. Accenture found that 84% of C-suite executives believe they must leverage AI to achieve their growth objectives, and yet 76 report that they struggle with how to scale. And 3 out of 4 C-suite execs believe if they don't scale AI in the next 5 years, they risk going out of business entirely. So what are the advantages these execs are trying to glean from AI and machine learning? Okay, most companies collect more data than they have the capability to analyze and use, but they still claim they desire the ability to make data-driven decisions. AI is able to tune out data noise, the data that's not useful. It determines what's useful, more importantly, what's actionable. And this allows companies to extract value from their data. AI can calculate the best ways to automate within a system. It provides real-time insight that drives business decisions and keeps companies competitive. Using AI and machine learning enables organizations to compare labels for various countries and regions and quickly respond to changes to avoid non-compliance, for example. This technology is important, especially for industries like medical device manufacturing, where regulations are ever evolving and data is always in flux. I'm sure you've been hearing about digital twins and supply chain traceability. This new-ish concept, which spans several technologies, is defined by IBM as a virtual representation of an object or system that's updated from real-time data. Digital twins provide traceability not only throughout a product journey through the supply chain, but in some cases throughout its entire life cycle, which is really exciting to me. Gartner says that digital twins help with understanding the asset state, responding to changes, improving business operations, and adding value. Essentially, anything that happens to the physical object will show up in the digital model or twin, so you always know what's happening with a specific product. Data carriers like NFC and RFID are at the base foundation of digital twin initiatives. Many enterprise-level companies, particularly in manufacturing, and we see particularly in the automotive sectors, have already engaged in digital twin strategies. So it's not tomorrow, it's today. Deploying new and developing barcode and labeling technologies helps organizations remain competitive and cultivate greater efficiency. So we've already discussed the advantages of an automated printing system. A key part of modern day process automation is workflow management, meaning creating and optimizing paths for the data required to perform a task. This allows for a repetitive process to be automated and for stakeholders to have a complete overall picture of a process and status, including approval management and visibility. Labeling automation systems should offer workflow management that includes seamless integration with other business systems. It should generate notifications of any action required to keep a process running, and it should provide an intuitive user interface for easy adoption, including code-free design. And I'm proud to say, little commercial again, after taking our customers' input into considerations, our developers have created a visual drag and drop workflow interface that enables quick adoption and training of this valuable time-saving tool. We're also seeing innovations in substrate and adhesive technology that make labels more recyclable and lighter, thinner labels that improve handling. Digimarc, let's talk about that for a minute. It's a relatively new symbology. It's a digital watermark. It's a barely perceptible barcode. Digimarc is able to hold GS1 data like GTINs, AI, and UPC, also digital link information. Since the Digimarc watermark covers the entire surface of an item, direct line of sight to a small area, as is required with a standard barcode, right, isn't necessary. This makes scanning much more efficient than with traditional visual barcodes. Current specialized applications in practice here include sustainability. Digimarc drives the Holy Grail project. You should read about it. Recyclable plastics can be easily identified, which improves accuracy and the quality of recyclates. Another application currently in use with Digimarc is brand protection. Since the mark is essentially covert and practically imperceptible, it's virtually impossible to detect without a scanner and very difficult to counterfeit, which provides a secure method of authentication. Digimarc has a lot of applications in practice. They've got a great website. I encourage you to visit. It's rich with information and it's also super interesting. The last innovation we'll cover is new standards, which are created to meet evolving markets and technologies. One of these is GS1's Digital Link Standard. It was introduced in February of last year. That's 2020. I know it's all a blur for most of us. It uses a single web-enabled barcode to disseminate different information about a product, data pertinent to each node in the supply chain, from manufacturer through the supply chain all the way to the consumer. So digital link URLs are encoded in a data carrier like a barcode or RFID and can be accessed through the scanner on a smartphone or in some cases an app. The beauty of digital link is that the data returned to the end user is contextual. It's a dynamic code that refers the user to different data depending on things like location, campaign, time zone, or demographics. It can change whether it's accessed by app or browser, and sometimes based on browser settings. So what does this mean? A consumer scanning a package of cookies would likely see provenance, nutrition, and ingredient information, but they might also see a recipe or a coupon for a discounted price. A German consumer would be delivered content in German, see the recipe in metric system measures and the coupon in euro, while an American consumer could be delivered content in English measures and US dollars. A retailer scanning the very same code might see things like lot number, a calendar for discounts and promotions on the product, planograms so the retailer can display the cans of soup in an effective brand-approved manner. And a logistics provider or warehouse could scan that very same code and access handling information or hazard information. Although I've never met a dangerous cookie, many CPGs, like cleaning products, for example, do have the potential to be hazardous. Disparate things like rewards, provenance, care instructions, product registration, and even POS UPC data that we expect will eventually eliminate for the need for a separate UPC code can be delivered through one item level on-pack code with the new Digital Link Standard. The consumer trend towards preferring earth-friendly items that have been manufactured sustainably has been significant in Europe for quite some time, and it's trending up here in the US. Manufacturers know a lot about their products and impact about sustainability. Consumers know relatively little, but they carry around a pocket-sized computer that has more than 1 million times the processing power it took to run the Apollo missions. And they want to use that computer to access product data, particularly about provenance and sustainable practices. They really want to hear more from manufacturers. Labeling can directly enable that communication. Interesting for manufacturers here is that MIT's Sloan School of Management found that consumers are willing to pay between 2 and 10% more for a product when there is more transparency. Coding provenance, proper use, and disposal instructions into a label, maybe even with a digital link URL contained in a Digimarc watermark, also allows organizations to track products so they end up in the right place to prevent further waste instead of being recycled or regenerated into new products. In fact, a few fast fashion retailers, recognizing how much of their product ends up in the landfill and how much their consumers value sustainability, are now including QR codes inside garments that communicate how to repurpose or recycle a garment when it's done being worn, which reduces landfill waste. And it keeps their customers happy and feeling good about buying products from these retailers. So, I hate to seem cynical, but this Dilbert strip is funny because it reflects a certain truth. It's a laugh, cry kind of humor. Without accuracy in labeling, next slide, please, Mike. All the automations, workflows, and new technologies, symbologies, and standards are useless, really. Consider the new e-commerce landscape. E-commerce has become a lifeblood between retailers and consumers, particularly during this time of global pandemic. Online shopping has accelerated to an unexpected and stratospheric rate. Stresses to the supply chain have made companies rethink just-in-time, offshore, and lean manufacturing. And consumers have shifted brand loyalty, choosing what's available over what they're accustomed to. And they expect to be able to order and receive items the same day, if not within the hour in some cities. So how is this new e-commerce normal happening without accuracy? It's not. You know how irritating it is when you receive the wrong item or an item doesn't arrive. Imagine how many different data points go into the delivery of a single item to your door. And this is global. If you're a manufacturer or retailer operating in multiple countries, you'll likely need to create labels in different languages and sometimes different dialects. And if you sell the same SKU into multiple markets, each with a different language, you're going to need to be able to print a different label for each language, with the potential to exponentially increase the resources you need to dedicate to data management. Automated labeling connects labels to accurate, trusted data sources. Rather than storing static data in each label file and managing one label format for each SKU, shipping address, or production date, labels can be designed with variable data fields that link to your existing sources, like ERPs such as SAP, Infor, Epicor, Sage, or Oracle, local spreadsheets and text files, system calendars or clocks, image databases, even weighing scales. Enterprise labeling software can automatically input accurate information into the data fields at print time based on business rules created by that labeling software. And finally, barcode validation and verification is becoming a requirement in the regulated industries. It's an expectation. Integrated verifiers can be used inline during production or offline to identify errors and blemishes to ensure that barcodes meet regulatory standards. And with that, my presentation is done. I see we have one question, which is what does AIDC stand for? And that's automatic identification and data collection. In chat. Can digital twins be used to help with the current troubles in the supply chain? Boy, I think they could if they'd been, if we were 2 or 3 years ahead of ourselves, if we had robust digital twin programs implemented throughout supply chains. We're not there yet. But again, you know, I think that they provide this certain kind of agility that the supply chain has been missing. Again, you know, for years, the emphasis, supply chain emphasis was on lean, just-in-time offshoring, squeezing every last penny out of the supply chain. In fact, a few years ago, the chief supply chain officer of one of the big box stores said that his goal was not to have any more than 2 or 3 days product in his retail outlet. Well, we see where that's gotten us. You know, once everything gets mangled up, there wasn't room for any variance over, we'd create a supply chain with no room for variance. And so that's why we see the problems we've been seeing that's one of the reasons we see the problems we've been seeing over the past several months. I think the good news here is people are starting to realize that you have to build agility. If you can't be nimble and adjust to changes in the supply chain, because the supply chain is not static, it is a very dynamic entity, that's where you really are providing value in today's supply chains. Can I talk about innovations in substrate and adhesives? Can I expound on those innovations? That is a great question. I'm not a chemist, but I play one on TV. What I'd suggest is that that I haven't gone deep into that. I'm mostly in the software side, but you know, we have there are many label manufacturers. There's, you know, Avery Dennison, their website is a rich resource for learning about these kinds of things. Google search would be great on this case. Oh, how long do I think optical-based AIDC will still be used? You know, when I first started working in this industry, which was in 2013, I heard a lot of bluster about, you know, barcodes there's a limited lifespan. We're not going to be using them for very much longer. But, you know, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. People understand them. And also the price point is very reasonable for a barcode. So I don't really think that they're going anywhere in short order. And, you know, another take was that RFID was going to be replacing the barcode. Well, what we're seeing is people are realizing that the power of including both a barcode and an RFID chip in a label. So no, I don't think barcodes are going anywhere. I've also been hearing for the last 10 years that this is the year of RFID. It might be the year of RFID. Price points have come down and reliability has gone up. So, how is the dynamic watermark typically printed? The Digimarc? It's printed, you know, it's printed with, I believe, with an inkjet printer. The challenge here for the digital watermark used at POS isn't so much the printing as far as hardware is concerned, it's the scanning. And I think Digimarc is finding that it's just a simple update to firmware in the scanner to make that go. So with that, I think that we're at time. This is a 30-minute webinar. Any questions that were asked, Mike, can you collect those and email them to me? Because I want to make sure that we respond to everybody who's been on the webinar and get their questions answered. I'll take care of that via email.
Yep, I will do that.
Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for attending. My email, I think we're going to send you a copy of the presentation. My email is on the first slide. I would encourage you, if you have questions or concerns, or if you just want to talk about labeling trends, that you contact me. I always learn so much when I when I talk to people that dial into these AIM webinars, I'm interested to learn about, what your challenges are and what you see is happening in the future. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. And thanks for attending.